and today I'm going to be talking to you about the Syrian refugee crisis. This was my capstone research project. So through the integrated core requirements at the University of Mount Union, we were required to do a senior capstone course. So I decided to take the capstone 407, Data, Information, Knowledge, and Wisdom. I decided to do that because coming from an education background, I wanted to learn more about the human mind hierarchy and how individuals process information. So through this course, we had a big assignment in which we were supposed to identify a problem and then use the data, information, knowledge, and wisdom framework to solve that issue. So we were divided into 4-member teams, and it was an interdisciplinary team. So in my team, I had a computer science major, a student studying early childhood education, a student studying accounting, and then myself coming from an intervention specialist background. So my interdisciplinary team chose the Syrian refugee crisis as our major issue, and then just some background information about it. There was a civil war that began in 2011, and that was because there was political unrest between the Syrian civilians and then government actions. That civil war has caused a lot of violence, unsafe environments, and infrastructure. And because of that, there has been 12 million refugees. So our team decided upon 3 main issues of the Syrian refugee crisis, and those 3 issues are, the first one is lack of education. The second one is that the Syrian government has a strict control over internet access, and they can also even track the Syrians. And then the last one is that the amount of cost relief efforts may not be enough to help the Syrians. So to learn more about our issue, we use the 8D problem-solving tool, which we learned about in our capstone course. The 8D problem-solving tool is normally used to identify, correct, and eliminate recurring problems. And for this, the capstone project, we focus on the description section, and that just kind of asks questions about your project, such as who, what, when, where, and why. So for the who question, it's who is affected by the problem. So my team found that the Syrian civilians were affected. There's 12 million refugees, and the number continues to increase. The what question, what type of problem is it? So this is a crisis in which there's intense difficulty and danger. The refugees are ill, malnourished, they're not receiving the education, and then they're also having to adjust to new cultures, so that's kind of providing them some challenges. And then also other countries are unable to provide additional help. They've been helping out a lot, but now they're reaching their limit as to where they can't provide any more help. And why? Why is it a problem? It's a problem because there was resistance from the Syrian civilians against the government actions. And then when was the problem first noticed? The civil war began in 2011. So once we learned more about our problem, we then wanted to find the root cause of the problem. So we did 2 techniques for root cause analysis. The first technique was the 5 whys, and we did the 5 whys because we wanted to explore the cause and effect relationship of the problem. So in the 5 why technique, you ask why 5 times. So our team found that the effect was that there were Syrian refugees. We asked why, and we found that there were Syrian civilians are leaving their country. And they're leaving their country because they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe because there was a civil war. There was a civil war because the civilians were disagreeing with the government actions. And then finally we found our root cause was that the government was too controlling. In our second root cause analysis technique, we used the fishbone diagram. We also did the fishbone so that we could see the cause and effect relationships. So in the fishbone head, you can see the effect, which would be that there are Syrian refugees. And then in the fishbone body, there's 6 major causes. So our causes, the first one is measurement. And we found that measurement was the number of refugees, which is 12 million, and then also the length of the war, which is 4 years. The second major cause is the materials. So the refugees are having, they have a lack of food. They're also using guns for fighting. There's chemical weapons and bombs, which is causing an unsafe environment. So that's what's causing the Syrians to flee their country. The third cause is method. So the refugees have taken, to flee their country, they've been walking across the borders and then also even crossing overseas. The fourth fourth major cause is machines, so the use of guns for fighting, which is causing the violence. And then number 5 is manpower, so opposition, other countries not assisting, other countries can assist, and then also the control of the government. And then our last cause is the environment. So host countries, the neighboring countries are hosting the refugees. There's a lack of safety for the refugees as they travel to those hosting countries. They also have a lack of food and they are traveling far distances and in nighttime. So for this root cause analysis, we found that manpower and environment were the root cause, which is similar to the 5Y root cause as well. So now that we learned about it and we know the root cause, we were able to kind of attack that root cause and find a solution. So we wanted to research already attempted solutions before we created our own solutions. So the first one that I found is that the AML Association, which is a non-governmental organization, has provided 110,000 services through mobile clinics to the refugees. Also, the Lebanese Ministry of Health has provided renal dialysis for 600 patients. And then in terms of hosting countries and hosting the refugees, Turkey has over 2 million refugees. Jordan has over 600,000 refugees. In Lebanon, 1 in 5 people are Syrian refugees. In Iraq, they have 250,000. And then the United States has resettled 1,500, but are promising to take in 5,000 through 8,000 by the end of 2016. And then in terms of fighting back against Assad, which is the president of Syria, the United States has provided the Syrian people bulletproof vests and then night vision goggles to certain vetted armed groups that are fighting back against Assad. So then I was able to create my own solution from the education background, but to do that I needed to use an archetype as a reference to create my solution. So an archetype is a tool that helps identify patterns of behavior that keep occurring over time. And there's also prescriptive and action steps in an archetype. So my team decided on the tragedy of the commons archetype, and we did that because it identifies connections between individual actions and collective results. So my solution through using the tragedy of the commons, the first step was to do the prescriptive actions, and those are just actions to help you find the best course of action for a given situation. So the first one is to make the common resource more real and immediate to the individual players. And in my discipline, the resource would be education. So I would need to create an educational system for the refugees. Then the second one is to reevaluate the nature of the commons. So I would need to provide a more effective education for the refugees and reevaluate the instruction to make sure that they're receiving material that's developmentally appropriate for them and that would be beneficial for them. And then the third one is to create a final arbiter who manages the use of the common resource. So I would say that the head of the Ministry of Education in Syria would oversee the implementation of the education provided to the refugees. And then here are my action steps. So this would be to apply the interventions. So the first one would be to identify the commons that is being shared. So I would need to create schools in the refugee camps, and if I would be able to create additional schools in neighboring countries as well. I would use if the Syrian teachers were teachers before and now they're refugees, I would have them be the teachers in the classrooms in the refugee camps. And then also we could use online sources such as Skype, as in where even people from the United States could present lessons to the children by using Skype. The second one is to determine incentives. So the incentive to having an education would be that the refugees would eventually become an active member of their society. They would be able to become employable, they'd have an income, and then they would be able to provide for themselves and their family. And the third one is to make long-term effects more present. So I would need to relate and show how important it is to receive an education so that they do become employable and then can provide for themselves in the future. And then the last one is to reevaluate the nature of the commons. So if there were any constraints upon the refugees receiving an education, like for example the Syrian government control over internet access, it would be hard to do the online sources of presenting a lesson. So in that case, the refugee children would need to attend schools in the camps or surrounding countries. And also instruction through family members. So if the family members are knowledgeable, then they can pass that down to their children as well. So in order for my solution to work for the crisis, it would need to prevent reoccurrence. So I would have the Ministry of Education in Syria and also the hosting countries train the teachers that are instructing in the refugee camps. They would need to be trained in effective teaching methods and strategies as well as child development. And then for the refugees, once they're educated, they will be able to pass down their knowledge to their family members in hopes of this issue never occurring again. And then overall, through the capstone course, I was able to look at the Syrian refugee crisis, which is a major issue impacting the world, and I was able to look at it through the Data Information Knowledge and Wisdom Framework, which we learned in our capstone course. And through our interdisciplinary team, I'm now able to work together in a team and collaborate and communicate with other peers. And now I'm knowledgeable about their different disciplines, and I can also use that information in my future career. And then lastly, just the University of Mount Union's mission statement. It is to prepare students for fulfilling lives, meaningful work, and responsible citizenship. So through the knowledge and skills I've learned, I'll be able to use that in my future endeavors to help me become a better teacher in the future. And my references. Thank you.